Welcome to Hub-Bub, the People's Podcast, where we engage our citizens and investors with the activities of the Planning and Code Administration and encourage everyone to contribute to Hagerstown's growth.
Well, welcome to the Hub-Bub Podcast. We appreciate all of you tuning in for our 24th episode.
We made it.
Yeah, a milestone, huh?
2 years. Can you believe it? I know I've been saying this like every episode, but we did it.
Yeah.
We swindled our way through here. We fooled everybody, and we made it 2 years. I don't know how they kept us.
I think they're paying us good. But anyway, I remember talking about how are we going to come up with this many topics?
Right. Mm-hmm.
And we already, I think we're out another year with topics.
Yeah, we got next year planned, so got that to look forward to.
Absolutely. But of course, I didn't really properly introduce you. You're Donnie Harcum.
I'm Donnie Harcum, and this is my wonderful co-host now of 2 years, Mr. Sean Brown. How are you today?
Yeah, I'm doing good. It's a beautiful day.
It is beautiful outside. Not too stinking hot out yet, but it's going to be a nice day.
Absolutely. So today, it's not a topic that we haven't discussed already before. We did this topic last year, and this being June, the month of June, National Safety Month, it's an appropriate topic to talk about safety in the home and for our families. And I got to think about it. Of course, we've talked about this before, as I just mentioned, but let me ask you something, Donnie. Before we had talked about safety in the home and families and things, had you really given it much thought?
Not as much as after we prepared for these podcasts, and especially after my son was born. You look at safety in an entirely different way and through a different perspective, that's for sure.
Yeah, I agree with you. When my boys came, I was like, yeah, I totally looked at, you looked at the home totally. Everything you did, they were automatically in your mind.
Right. Yeah, 'cause, we've been around a while. We kind of know the dangers or the potential dangers at a house, Whereas a kid, they're learning their home as they grow. So as a parent, you kind of have to watch out for those safety concerns throughout the house.
Absolutely. And we're talking about this today because it's a little bit of an irony in the fact that safety oftentimes isn't really considered in the home. Mm-hmm. Everything we do, and as we're going to talk about, there are so many things in the home that really should include safety. Yet in many cases, when we think about it, well, it's all after the accident happens, right? Yeah. At the same time, when you think about safety, what is it really? It's really the value you put on life.
That's a good way of putting that. Never thought of it that way.
Yeah, so, nobody would admit, no, I don't care about my family or care about their safety, but at the same time, how we look at safety in the home is a measure.
Right, no.
And so it's just a mindset. So hopefully, again, doing this podcast, safety in the home and our family and just a lot of things that we can do, perhaps will change our perspective and we'll look at our homes and our families differently than perhaps we did before. And what's interesting is just related to children as an example, according to Safe Kids Worldwide website, it mentioned that 2,200 children die each year from an injury in the home, and 3.5 million children go to the emergency department for the kinds of injuries that commonly happen in homes. So when you just consider that statistic alone and related to children, nobody wants that to happen, yet it happens so much. So again, that's why we're talking about this topic this month, highlighting National Safety Month, because each year the National Safety Council promotes this as an initiative that focuses on heightening awareness of important safety issues. Of course, again, will be the focus of our podcast. So we're just going to provide so many tips on how to be safe in our home. Back in episode 17, we talked about energy saving tips. And again, a lot of things that we're talking about today go hand in hand with other episodes that we've done in the past. So it's going to be a lot of helpful information that's going to help us to be safer in our home. And we might even think, well, just kind of on the top of our head, that our home is safe. We just assume that. Because if it wasn't, we would make changes. We would do things differently. So we assume our home is safe right now. But perhaps, again, as we consider this podcast, we're going to think about our own home. We're going to think, oh yeah, that's a risk. That's an unsafe situation. and things that maybe you really didn't think about before, but now, yeah, I need to make a change.
No, that's some really good points there. And, like you said, we've touched on so many of these issues in the past because that is at the core of what we do every day. Safety is in the forefront of our minds. So I'm really excited for this this topic. And I know we talked about kids a lot, and a lot of our tips will deal with kids, but it's just not for kids. So these are tips for everybody. So some of the first ones that I want to dive into here are some home safety tips that you can practice every day. So bathtubs, they present two dangers, falling and drownings, and one can lead to the other. You never want to leave a child alone in a tub, and to ward off any falls, you want to install a non-slip bath mat. You never want to leave your kitchen or house when something is cooking. You don't want to be making that pizza and step out for a bit, and then all of a sudden the security company is calling you because you set off all the smoke alarms. That may or may not have just happened at my house. So we didn't step out, but
No, that's the reality. My next door neighbor, where I used to live in Virginia, next thing we know, I hear them screaming and hollering, and the fire trucks are rolling up, smoke's rolling out of the house. That's exactly what happened. One of the young girls was frying chicken on the stove, left, and just that quick.
Yeah. Yeah, we had something sitting at the bottom of our oven, and we opened up the oven, and smoke came out, and had the security company calling us, and that was not fun. But everything was good. But I can only imagine what it would have been like if nobody was home, or you stepped out for a bit and forgot about it. So something to keep in mind. You want to keep all your staircases clear of clutter. Make sure carpet or runners are securely tacked down. You want to make the proper repairs to handrails and guardrails. You want to make sure you're cleaning the lint traps after every use, and clean the dryer vent at least once every year. Clothes dryers are a leading cause of fires in a home. Just me and my wife, we never leave the dryer running when we leave. That's one thing I'm kind of worried about, so it's just a tip of mine. You want to secure all the rugs to the floor to avoid any slipping. And this might sound out of place, but it's a very important safety measure. You want to lock down your Wi-Fi network. This is a doorway to your personal and financial information. I just got a new Wi-Fi system at my house, and there's some really simple but effective ways to protect your online use. So if you haven't updated your network in a while, take a look at it and see what you could improve.
Yeah. And these, like you just mentioned, and things we're going to talk about, we're talking about very, very simple actions to keep our home safe. It's just perhaps having a checklist, and if you go online, there are a lot of just really nice, simple checklists that you can do on a regular basis that just can really help keep the family safe, really simple, relatively speaking. So for example, one of the things that's really important to do that doesn't take much on a monthly basis is to test our smoke alarms each month. That can seem like a no-brainer, but the evidence is that many people do not, because approximately 25% of fires in the United States do not have a working smoke alarm. So once a month, all you got to do is hit a button, test it to make sure that it's working. But what's interesting as well is that when you look further into statistics of those homes that have no working smoke alarms, 3 out of 5 home fires with no working smoke alarm resulted in death. So we're talking about something very catastrophic happening, but could have very easily been preventable. And we went into a lot of detail on smoke alarms way back in episode 2.
Wow.
So yeah, that was a long time ago. So how can you be safer in your home with this monthly test? Well, again, press the button on each smoke alarm in your home to see that it's working properly. And don't forget, every 10 years you should replace your smoke alarm. Nowadays, the current code requires a 10-year lithium battery. They're good for 10 years. Chances are, if there's no date, which you should check on that alarm, then it probably is well out of date and you'll want to replace that.
So to test these smoke alarms, all I have to do is hit a button. I don't have to burn the food every night. Because they sure are working lately, so that's good to know. Along those same lines, you want to make sure you're cleaning your smoke alarms. Smoke and carbon monoxide alarms, they could develop dust after a while, keeping them from identifying threats in your home when they are most needed. Clean the grills while you're testing each unit by dusting them. Don't spray cleaners on them. Just use a little dust rag to clean them off.
Yeah, in addition to that, when it comes to cleaning, another thing that's big is, filters. You think about filters, we have some type of filter or multiple filters throughout the home. The thing about these filters is that when they accumulate dust, they become very, very flammable. There's videos, you can go on YouTube and watch these videos about how, you can just see how quickly these things just go up and fire if they ignite. And not to mention, it just also helps you improve the efficiency of your appliance, whether it's your refrigerator or HVAC system or whatever. If you keep those filters clean, then it saves on your energy bill as well. That includes window air conditioners. Oftentimes they have reusable air filters and they should be cleaned regularly. And it's just simply by cleaning many of them with soap and water, unless you have to replace them. Same thing with our furnace and HVAC equipment. They should be replaced regularly. Again, they reduce the risk and help things run more efficiently. And that includes even air purifiers. So a lot of these things not only are a safe measure, but they can also affect your pocketbook too.
Oh, no doubt. We can talk about this more offline, but do you use an air purifier at your house?
I do not.
No, I don't either. And my allergies, our whole house allergies have been so bad this year. So I'm kind of looking into those to see maybe it's something to use in the future. Didn't know if you had any experience with them.
So,
no. Okay. Good to know. So still along there with fire safety, make sure you're reviewing your fire extinguishers. You want to make sure the fire extinguishers in the home are checked every month. Make sure they are filled correctly. Look at the gauge on the extinguisher to see if they are charged properly. You might have to replace an extinguisher if it does not have a full charge. Make sure you get a licensed professional to look at them. And if you have a fire extinguisher that is not properly charged, it's just good to have that professional take a look at it, because not everybody is so well versed in how to do that.
Absolutely. Here's another thing to look at, and oftentimes we don't look at it until we're forced to, and that is our panel boxes when it comes to those breakers and things. Probably the only time we ever look at that thing is if we trip a breaker. Mm-hmm. But if the breaker's tripping, that indicates that maybe something is wrong. So it's really a good idea from time to time to just kind of take a visual look at our breaker boxes. And what are we looking for? Well, we're looking for maybe just touching each one of the breakers to make sure that it's not getting too warm. It shouldn't be doing that. And if it's tripping, it might be getting warm, then that tells you that there's some type of electrical problem. And certainly sometimes people's experience levels may be limited with that, but if you've got a problem with things continue to trip as far as the panel box, certainly you want to get a licensed electrician. And one thing that is helpful for the citizens in our community is right on our website. We have a list of licensed electricians. We've talked about in this past, we can't refer anybody, but you can go on there and you can see, hey, who's legally licensed to do work in the city of Hagerstown. And so certainly just feel free to contact a professional if you need to do that.
Last time I called an electrician, he went up to my breaker box and said, "Why are you tripping?" No? All right, I thought I'd throw that one in.
Kind of like now?
Yeah. Anyways, so moving on. You want to make sure you're replacing any burned out light bulbs. I currently have a flickering one in my bathroom that I need to replace. My wife keeps reminding me and I keep forgetting. So make sure you're going to each room, turning on the lights, see if you have any burned out bulbs that need replaced, and make sure you're disposing of the old ones properly. You want to make sure the new bulbs that you're installing have proper wattage for the light fixture. And lights that are burnt out can actually be a hazard.
Interesting. Yeah. Another thing too is with our refrigerators. Again, something that could be a hazard, but if we didn't check it regularly, could create issue. Refrigerators on the back, sometimes in cases the whole back side, are coils. They're basically for cooling the refrigerator components. So it's good to check those from time to time. You've got this tight space between the back of your refrigerator and the wall, not much air movement, you get lint buildup. That can create issue. It can cause potential overheating. And then, of course, you've got other issues as well. So it's good to check that from time to time.
That is good to know. A lot of this has a lot to do with dust, just because these things are constantly working and we don't give much thought to them. So this is just your reminder. You want to make sure you're dusting, all your fixtures around the house. The light fixtures around your home can develop quite a good bit of dust. Make sure these spots are cleaned out regularly so that they will not become fire hazards. Yes, even dust can become flammable. And you can do this while checking for your burnt bulbs. And this tip also includes lamps and recessed lighting areas.
Yeah, so good points as well. And of course, a moment ago, we just talked about panel boxes, but related to the electrical system are just the wall outlets themselves. Especially in Hagerstown, what's unique about Hagerstown is you have so many old structures, and they just didn't put as many wall outlets in them as they do now. So what tends to happen? Well, you may have 1 or 2 outlets in a room, 2, of course, hopefully as a minimum, but now you're tapping into 2 outlets to run a lot of different things, and that can be dangerous. So you want to make sure that you're not overloading an outlet. Just because you can plug a number of things into an outlet using a strip doesn't mean it's capable for handling that load. And the danger part is that could be a significant fire hazard. And so what's a good idea to do? Well, one thing you can do just simply is feel the outlet in the area. Is it warm? Well, if it's warm, then that probably tells you there's a potential problem there. Or if you see dark spots around the openings themselves, that means that there's probably some type of electrical arcing or things going on there. So again, if you see or feel that any of these issues are affecting you, again, you want to contact a city licensed electrician just to take a look at those things. Maybe a little bit of time and a little bit of expense that could mean the difference between the well-being of your family.
Good point. Something we normally don't think about as far as safety, but security of your home. You want to make sure you're testing your home's locks and doors. Both the bolt locks and knob locks should be tested to see if they are fully functional. Check to see how well your keys fit into each lock. And you want to replace anything that's not working. I know some of these things we kind of put up with from time to time, but if it's that much of a hassle, just replace them. And you want to make sure you test all of the doors by opening and closing them. Look at how well a door is hinged to a door frame, just for fire safety issues too. I know they were promoting the Close Before You Doze campaign last year or 2 years ago. So making sure your doors are closed when you go to sleep, because it will could save you in the event of a fire.
Excellent. And yet another issue that kind of is in the realm of safety is when it comes to dealing with pests and infestations. That can be difficult, and that can create other problems, health issues. So it's good just to do kind of a visual as much as you can of your home, both the interior and the exterior. You're looking around your foundation. You're looking at areas to see where insects or other pests might be able to get entry into the home. And so again, this is one of those things, sometimes you can handle it yourself, but it's something out of control or you're not able to kind of overcome. Why not contact a licensed exterminator if you see signs of pest-related issues?
How about cicadas? Do you have any cicadas at your house?
No, I haven't heard any in my area.
I don't either. I think we may have had one, but then I go 20 minutes down the road to my parents' house and they're everywhere. It is insane. Talk about pests. I know they're not danger to you, but it's insane how many are out there in certain parts of the area.
Yeah.
To go along the same lines as what you're saying with pests, I am not a fan of bees. Bees are my biggest fear, and so if I ever have to get rid of bees, I'm calling somebody. So I'm not dealing with that. And something that could bring in more pests is standing water. I'm not sure if you went to the training before, Sean, with mosquitoes, but we learned a lot about how standing water can be a home for mosquitoes. And not only that, but the standing water can develop anywhere. And this could be from a rainstorm where water may have pooled in your yard. And each yard's so different. You might have a spot that pools up every single time you get a rain, or if you have different yard features throughout, or different pieces of furniture that may be collecting water. Make sure you are getting rid of that as soon as you can.
Absolutely. And speaking of that, when we're thinking about the outside areas of the home, there are other areas that really relate to safety. In fact, back in episode 16 was a really good program, podcast that we did on CPTED, which stands for Crime Prevention Through Environment Design. And basically what that is has to do with the landscaping and surroundings of your property. So as an example, if I've got tall, large heads and they're blocking the whole front of my house, that creates a potential issue for people who want to do harm, because what better place to hide and do something to your house, because nobody from the outside can see what's going on, because your house is basically fully blocked from the view of the street. So really what that's really suggesting is take a look at your landscaping and how it's positioned, even surrounding trees. And sometimes because of the way that they're designed and the way that they're kept, could put your home and even your family at risk. So, just make sure that, all those things are designed in such a way that they don't obscure your property and allow risks and threats to your property. Shrubs are the main thing, but when we look at things such as trees, sometimes you get used to looking at your tree every day and you really don't notice anything different about it, but when you look up close to it, it looks like it could fall over at any moment. So, make sure you look at those trees. One thing that can be helpful is if you keep your trees trimmed, because you can get so many limbs on there that they're so heavy, they put stress on the tree, and then before you know it, the tree has fallen over because it's so weak. Maybe standing well in normal conditions, but a little wind comes up or a storm, and that's when you find out the tree wasn't in such good shape. So just those preventative measures. And even when it comes to the shrubs and growth, sometimes these things, because they're allowed to get out of control, can even affect the integrity of the home's foundation. And again, because the way they're designed, maybe become spots that burglars or other criminals might use to gain entry into your home. So again, we just covered a couple of points, but if you really like a comprehensive view of this CPTED program, again, watch episode 16. A lot of good tips on how to protect your home. And then, testing your windows as well. Again, we look at the inside, but doing a thorough inspection on the outside. How many of us go around our home and just look at the exterior of all of our windows? Well, that's a good idea to make sure, because sometimes things that can affect the windows on the outside that may affect the integrity of the window, making sure there's no cracks or broken areas. Test the locks. Again, doing these checks just on a regular basis, even monthly, it can be just a little bit of time that's well spent that can protect our family. And especially, again, we talk about children. Our children are so valuable to us. And, sometimes because we have children, like you, Donnie, I know that this is the case with you. When we have children, we have other children over to our home. Mm-hmm. So our children may be familiar with our home and the safety aspects of it, but when those other children visit, are they safe as well? So just taking those steps to childproof our home, not only for ours, but other children as well.
That's great points, and you're absolutely right. Right now, in our group of friends and family, my son is the youngest, but as he gets older, more friends and family have younger kids, and, it may be time to loosen some of those safety measures that was once relevant for a toddler, but you also got to realize those other kids that could be coming over as well. So I'm glad you brought that up. So speaking of kids, I'm going to give you a few more tips on how to keep your children safe in your home. You want to make sure that TVs are securely mounted on a wall if possible. If not mounted on a wall, you want to make sure the stand is anchored, or the stand is anchored to the wall. And kids like to climb. I can attest to that. My son is just climbing everywhere, and it's just, you can't really leave him on his own right now because he is climbing everything he can find. Electrical plugs and power strips. You want to make sure they have the proper child protection in place. This can be those child-proof covers or tamper-resistant outlets. Power strips should be placed in an area where a child could not reach them. Windows should have a guard or child protective device. Many of the replacement windows have child protection devices on them to prevent a window from opening fully to allow a child to climb out the window. And speaking of windows, you should have cordless blinds installed. It's unfortunate that over 200 children have died since 1990 from getting their neck caught in a looped cord. Now I know doing our inspections now, we see a lot less of those, which I'm very thankful for. And as with the TV stands, dressers are to be secured to walls with anti-slip devices. Nearly 15,000 kids visit the ER every year for tip-over related injuries. Kitchens always present hazards for children. If possible, consider gating the kitchen to prevent entry into the area. If gating is not possible, be sure to have the child-proof locks. Me and my wife, we went through 2 sets of locks now. The first ones were just the ones that they lock, you push down on them and open them. Well, as my son got a little bit older, he figured those out very quickly, and now we have the magnetic locks for all the cabinets, which have worked very well until he gets a hold of a magnet and figures that one out. So, consider stove knob locks or removing them when the stove is not in use. Adding a childproof guard to the front of the stove can prevent reaching for items on the stove, and these should be installed in addition to those knob locks. I never knew those knob locks existed, again, until shopping for kid items, and we have those on our stove today because he does like reaching up there and trying to grab them. It's not happening in our house. Bathrooms are another area that can be hazardous to kids. You would never want to leave a child alone in a bathtub. Always supervise the child while in the tub. And you want to also ensure that any items such as hair dryers and curling irons are not plugged in when not in use. And consider adding a toilet latch to prevent unwanted use of the toilet. That's a good one. That's something I might have to look into.
Yeah. I was just watching these people that are building a home on the YouTube channel, and they've got a little girl. She's a toddler, and they were just talking about how she's figured out how to open the toilet lid. And she has chucked everything in the toilet. So she's fishing all this stuff out. So,
That's good to know.
Yeah. But, these are a lot of good general child-proofing tips that we've talked about. And they're really, really important in the way of steps to protect our children and our home. There is no end to the wealth of information and resources on the internet these days that just provide so many steps to keep children safe in our home. And I might add that, having in the past different types of volunteer work, they put a lot of emphasis on safety. So we've talked about a lot of things to do in the way of safety measures in our home, but just as important is to be safe ourselves when we're doing it. And so how often sometimes we hear about what's called PPE, personal protective equipment. So sometimes we're taking steps to be safe, and we're not being safe doing it. And so it's important to recognize sometimes the kind of the safety things, and rather than the mindset is that we look at sometimes these things as a burden because they take time and resources. But when you think about what the cost would be if we didn't,
right?
Yeah, absolutely. So this episode we have provided a lot of information. Again, you may not remember all this stuff. Not that you necessarily want to go back and listen to us again. But again, there's a lot of things that are on the website. There's the Home Safety Council, National Safety Council, and Stay Safe. Those are just a few organizations that can really provide a lot of helpful information, a lot of nice graphics, pictures that you can use for your children, safety checklists that can be really helpful because you can't remember all those things.
There's a lot of information that we covered, for sure. And I do want to mention, if you're looking for other safety tips, you can unfollow us on Facebook and Instagram. We do have a page for the Hub-Bub Podcast, and you can search for the Planning and Code Administration for the city of Hagerstown on those platforms as well. We always put out, like right now we're putting out swimming safety tips, energy saving tips. We do a bunch of those throughout the year, so there's always some good information out there. And if you do want to listen to us again, you can subscribe to us on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Anchor, and Spotify, and most other podcast platforms. And while you're there, if you're on Apple Podcasts, give us a rating. That will allow us to be discovered by other people. So if you found this episode interesting, give us a rating, share with your friends and family. We'd greatly appreciate it. And now it's time for Sean's favorite part of the episode, the weird news story. All right, so this one, the title of it was "A Staten Island Man Found a Gold Safe in His Yard." All right, so these homeowners, they had this rusty box in their backyard. It was wrapped up in poison ivy, so they never really messed with it too much. It was, tons of overgrowth. Mm-hmm. They originally thought it was an electrical box that was abandoned. And after they were having yard work done, they discovered it was a locked safe. So after using some heavy equipment, they pried it open and discovered that there's $52,000 worth of cash, gold, and jewelry inside. And there was an address on the box. And so they tracked down the people at this address, which happened to be close neighbors of theirs. And they asked if they've ever been robbed. And they actually were. So back in 2011, there was a serial robber going around the neighborhood, and these people were robbed, and they never found this box. And here it was in the backyard of their neighbors this entire time. So it's kind of crazy. Never know. It's a good reason to clean up your yard. You never know what you're gonna find back there. But yeah, it's a really good story, and it's super cool of those homeowners to return that box. To the other homeowners.
That is a cool story. Yeah. Okay. Well, next month we're going to have an episode that deals with an interesting topic. A very interesting topic. Some would say it's up for debate, but it's dealing with the area of hemp and cannabis. Yeah. It's coming to communities. In some cases, it's already in communities. It is in the city of Hagerstown.
Yeah, like you said, it's a little controversial sometimes, a little touchy subject, but it is permitted. And so we want to discuss, why it's permitted, how it became permitted and all that.
So it should be an interesting topic. Just with what little I've learned, there are a lot of interesting dynamics to it. So we're going to talk about that in a lot more detail. Why is it permitted, but then some ins and outs of that. So should be an interesting topic. All right, so we're down to our musical guest for this month. I really like this group. I'm the kind of I like music in general, but when it comes to unique music, I kind of focus a little bit. And that's these guys here, the Woodshedders. They're kind of an indie roots band. I think it's 5 members. They've played hundreds of festivals in the area. They're kind of all around here and even in the city of Hagerstown. A unique band because, and when I say unique, I mean from the aspect of their instruments. That's what I kind of look at. Because, they're kind of a rock indie, but then they also implement instruments such as saxophone and even a fiddle. Wow. Not too many bands that have a fiddle in them that are...
You don't hear that very much anymore.
No, but really it's a nice sound. So I was just... chatting with Dwayne Brook, who's the singer and guitarist, and he was inspired by the Blues Festival at a young age, and he just really got him going. So they do a kind of a variety of originals. They do covers. They do a lot of improvisation, which is impressive when you look at that. So pretty interesting. They've got some upcoming events. They're going to be playing at Ragin' on the River Saturday, June 19th in Albright, West Virginia. And then they're going to be a part of Hagerstown's music scene for the 4th Friday lineup on September 24th. So that'll be here before you know it. But look forward to listening to them play. And of course, you can find them on social media. They do have a website, www.woodshedders.com. They're on YouTube. You can catch their videos. So really good entertainers. I mean, not only do they have good music, but they're very entertaining to watch as well. Yeah. All right. So we appreciate you listening to the Hub-Bub Podcast this month. And so now we'll take it out with music from the Woodshedders.